I'm ready now, and then it's finished. So yeah, so my name's Gavin and I work at Toshiba Medical, and one of the things I've been working on is kind of wearable devices for older people. It's through that I've really got an interest into the Internet of Things. Basically because wearables are one of the many things in the Internet of Things. So I'll cover some of the same ground that Simon has. So this is the projected population for Scotland. So basically the blue bars, 2004, red bars in 2031, and then the problem is there's more old people who need services. You know, as people get older, they pick up chronic conditions and need more and more help. But there's fewer young people who basically the health system is funded by taxpayers in any one year. So there's fewer people paying in and more people that need help. And this isn't just a problem in Scotland. Japan is very severe, but throughout Western Europe, throughout the Western world, it's a problem. You know, will become a problem everywhere, I think, with the change as people move to cities and the changing birth rate and things like that. So, what's that? Oh, okay. So one of the ways we've kind of been thinking about this, so this is an amazing graph I've drawn, is basically thinking about independence. So when you're born, you're completely dependent. You grow up, and then there's a point where you become independent. You kind of fly the nest, you leave home, and then for most of your life, you look after yourself. But as you get older, as I say, people pick up chronic conditions. You know, it might be related to frailty or something, and then there might come a point where you become ill enough that you need to go into hospital. So actually at that point, you're no longer independent, you're dependent. You get treatment in hospital, you come out again, you get a bit worse. And then for many people, they kind of may end up in a care home, so at that point, they're being looked after and they are dependent. But the thing is, when it comes to this point where you fall below this kind of like independence line, so this is a minimum level, actually quite small things can make a difference to keeping people living in their own homes, actually being active and things like that. So really, what we've been trying to find is what are those kind of things that we can do that kind of raise people above that level. And actually some of those things can be quite simple and are being done by councillors now. So it can be as simple as putting handrails and things like that so that people can pull themselves up steps or out the bath and things. It can be technology as simple as that really. So because this is such a big problem, there are a lot of groups interested in it. So I've kind of spoken to a number of people. So in Scotland there's the Digital Health and Care Institute who are kind of very interested in this problem. But it also touches Census, basically a sensor-based group, but they've kind of recently had an Internet of Things call where they're looking for Internet of Things projects to fund. But health is one of the areas they want to look at. So actually, in terms of the sensors that might go into somebody's house or that somebody might wear, that sensor's there. But they all generate data, and then Data Lab are very much, well, as we're generating all of this data, what can we do with it that's useful for people? So that's at the regional level. Kind of go up to the EU, and ambient and assisted living was mentioned. There's a AL program, but there's other programs. So there's EIP is an innovation program, so that's a higher level program looking to fund active and healthy aging rather than ambient assisted living. But SPIDER is another one that I found, which is actually where how can public services use things such as the Internet of Things to kind of innovate new services, to change the way that they deliver services. And there's been some good projects, but a common story that I've kind of seen when I've spoken to people is there's been some great pilots, but it's very difficult to go from a pilot. You know, in Scotland, talking to people, they want something, well, we've got 300,000 people, you've done a trial for 300 people, how do we scale it up? So that's one thing that's of interest. Another thing that's changing is the NHS is changing. So in a lot of places, there was a social care budget and a healthcare budget, or the NHS budget. Those budgets are being combined. There's a big push to make everything digital rather than paper. There still is quite a lot that's paper, but more and more and more is being done digitally. Access that then enables access. So it's actually patients being able to access their medical records. But it's not just that, it's linking up social care with primary care, with the GPs that people see, with hospitals, but also with the patient themselves being able to see the data, their families. And you know, data really is the thing is actually giving people control of their own data, giving the people who need access to the data, and then actually using data to kind of tailor services to decide where money should be spent and things like that. Yeah, so this is just shows some of the complexities. Unfortunately, this isn't a great graphic, but just again, so this is from Bristol, just showing the number of interested parties. And right now, they'll all have their own data systems, and they're slowly connecting these up over time. But eventually, you know, they will all talk to each other. So social care will be able to see, oh, you've had that test from the GP, things like that. And the other thing is, people will be able to feed their own data. So if they've got sensors in their house and things like that, then that data can be fed into the whole system too. So this is a slightly, I'm kind of hopping between lots of subjects because it is a huge subject, and I kind of want to just touch on a number of things that have made me think. So in terms of wearable devices, for older people, the full pen is the most common wearable device. So the problems that older people suffer from fall into another, you know, the key categories. So risk of fall is one, kind of infections is another one. Those are two of the big things that cost a lot of money, that can end up with people being in hospital for extended periods of time, and kind of end up, if things go badly, with them ending up in care rather than kind of going back into their own homes. So the full pendant has allowed a lot of people to live independently, but a lot of people see it as a mixed blessing. Some people hate it because it's a stigma. It's something that people see, and it's like, oh, it marks them out as being less able. Other people love it because it's a big red button, and if something happens, they know, whether they've got their glasses on or not, they can see the big red button to press it. So a little more advanced here, this is a Honeywell device. So this is taking blood pressure. So this is a step on where the data are being uploaded to the local GP service. But again, it looks, you know, it's not something you go into a shop to buy. It looks like a medical device, but it's got big buttons, it's got big text. And the design of a lot of consumer devices isn't necessarily suitable for older people, you know, big little buttons and things like that. But the other thing is, when the NHS is buying something, they don't really care what it looks like, they care what the cost is. The cost is a critical thing, so there was a programme, so this is all telehealth related. I mean, great, we can give people these devices. So the NHS did a big trial with, it's a few years ago, about 5 years ago now, with over 6,000 people to see, actually, does telehealth and telecare really save money or not? And the results have been mixed, unfortunately. And one of the problems is in the last few years, that's put quite a few people off of investing in telehealth. But one of the things is the number of old people continues to increase, the number of problems continues to increase, but the technology gets better, and I think a lot more people are seeing the whole system demonstrated as a way to learn how to do it right, rather than as proof that it can never work. So just a couple of things at Toshiba we've used. So the device on the left is the Silmead bar type, the Caterham name Silmead bar type light, which is a vital sign sensor, so it sticks using a sticky patch. I've got one I can show you afterwards, and it measures activity, ECG and heart rate. We've been using this to look at sleep, but also to do automatic fall detection as well too. So instead of somebody having to raise the alarm, if they fall and they're unconscious, then help still comes. Some of the other devices are wrist-worn devices, and they've got GPS. So again, people with dementia, that can be a problem. So, you know, if you can track them when they wandered away, then that's a helpful thing. But wrist-worn device is also much better if somebody needs to kind of press the button and raise the alarm themselves. So in terms of devices, again, the Toshiba devices, you know, to be honest, they are aimed at basically passing, you know, kind of the medical tests so they can be officially used as medical devices. But the problem with that is they end up looking like medical devices. And I think actually for it to really take off, I think people want to use it. So one of the things that I've seen that I like is the Withings blood pressure cuff, which looks like a pretty kind of cool thing. It looks a lot less medical than standard blood pressure cuff. And the person I saw from Withings speak was saying actually they try and design things that people want to have on show, that actually they're proud of, rather than a little bit ashamed of. And they said it's about giving somebody a story. When somebody comes round, actually, you want a story that you want to tell them about this device you've got. So I think that's something that future devices kind of need to aim for, and I think much more devices are. And then Philips have got a new full pendant out, and they've worked with Cambridge consultants on design to make it look good. On the design point, something that people frequently mention is USB connectors, which are slowly improving, but I find USB connectors awkward sometimes. Put them in the wrong way and get frustrated. If you're old and your hands shake and things like that, that's terrible. But again, there's a solution to that. There's little pads now, inductive charging and things like that. So again, technology I think is providing an answer to these. But finally, in terms of things that I think will change is the ways people access their data. So a lot of people are uncomfortable using a computer, or not as comfortable as they could be. Televisions are mentioned, but they're really quite clunky. But tablets, old people seem to get on really, really well with tablets. There's a project in the Netherlands where they've effectively created a large print iPad, so that all the icons and things are bigger, which is, as I understand, has been going really well. But I don't think it's beyond the realms of reason actually. Well, these just get given, as part of the treatment you get given an iPad, because that allows you to access your data and record readings and things like that. Perhaps how you've been feeling, whether you've been feeling good or bad on a particular day. So I think that kind of device, and actually making it easy and fun, and enjoyable for people to access their data, so it's not a big problem. So I have a think about the future. So we've already seen Paro the Seal, but actually, so this is a robot so this is Pepper the robot that sold out, which isn't specifically targeted at older people, but it is a robot that's kind of going into office environments. So I think it's a step along the way to robots helping older people, because it's a robot that's intended to be used in real life. But one of the things that they're really concentrating on in terms of the features is Pepper being able to understand emotions. So actually having robots that can do more than just follow orders, but actually understand the situation, understand what's happening. I think they could help, but I think there's some way off yet as well. I think actually in the short term, some fairly mundane things will probably make quite a big difference to people. So I think apps that enable people to kind of get and record health information, and the portals as well too, that enable them and their families to record and access the information. Things like sleep sensors. You can have wearables, but actually, probably for charging and energy and things like that, sleep can be, or disturbed sleep patterns can be an early indicator. Say somebody's got an infection, and so if you can treat that infection so that they don't get hospitalised, that's better for them, that's better for the care organisation too. But a sleep sensor is something you can put into a bed, plug in the wall, and forget about it. The person doesn't need to think about it at all. And I guess in that category come things as like connected scales and other devices too, that can just be around the house, that aren't intrusive, that people just kind of build into their everyday routine without really thinking about it. And so, just to kind of conclude, what I'm really trying to do is try and invent, a device or a set of devices that are the kind of, commercially successful and really help people. I haven't got there yet. I don't know what they are. But I think there need to have these qualities. So I think there kind of needs to be a desirability. When people are older, if they've got, difficulty walking or difficulty breathing or things like that, there's actually, they've got a real incentive to use these devices. But I think actually kind of making them well designed and easy to use and things like that, and so there's a story behind them as well too to make them desirable, is important. I think flexibility is important. It's not one device, and this is where the Internet of Things comes in. I think it's lots of devices that can talk together, but actually people aren't the same. It's going to be different devices for different people. People are going to be comfortable using some and uncomfortable using others. A key thing, if it's going to be health, is efficacy. For the NHS and for social services to spend money, they need to see, actually, right, well, this helps people have this many quality life years, or it saves this much money, or ideally a mixture of both. So I think to do this, there's kind of going to be a number of disparate elements that need to be brought together. So I think it's part of it's the devices. I think it's allowing people to access the information and sharing it between social services, third sector, NHS, the people and their families. But I think to do that kind of does need standards. There aren't really standards for the Internet of Things at the moment. And in terms of interoperability, so within the NHS, they're kind of doing this by spending quite a lot of money on companies that will connect their various different data silos together, whereas if they had standards, then they should, in theory, all work together. But another key thing is security, because it is sensitive data. And we've got to, you know, there's been stories recently about how to hack baby monitors if you want to see pictures of sleeping babies, you know, so I think it is vitally important that there's security. So that's kind of like a quick whistle-stop tour of just some of the things we're considering at the moment. I've got a video to show, if that's okay, if I've got time.
Go for it, yeah.
That's just on there, great. So this is a video done by a group called Superflux, which kind of touches on older people, internet things, health devices.
There warning to vary in all areas except for cyber.
Hold on.
The general synopsis of 1800, Iceland 960, drifting slowly east from Scilly. Low 250 miles northeast of the Fairway 950 by 1800 Sunday. High for Florida 1033, slow medium with little change. The area forecast for the next 24 hours, Viking north and south east Sierra at 40.
Is it Chinese? Is it Japanese? James is Chinese. This little man is Japanese. How did it? If the cost is kept a little behind this instead of the naked, you know, I've never heard me say 150 pounds, 150.
We are seeing the entire shape of British politics changing before our eyes. Look at that! It is right up. It's almost breaking our swingometer.
Annoying.
Horrifying column that for the Lib Dems, down 27%.
Northwest 5 or 6, wintry showers, good, occasionally 4. North at Sierra, south at variable 4, between south and east 5 or 6, west 40, promising
I think you probably will. Yeah. I tell you what, you've got several years or so. I can hardly
The sharks are focusing all their attention on the offshore islands, full of young seals. By watching how the sharks hunt here, Alison has learned what time of day an attack is. Here is the general synopsis at 0700 GMT. cow into Viking, North of Sierra, South of Sierra, Red Pine, Bush. Westerly becoming Bush. Humber Town, Bedford, Leyland Down, Dover Soul, 8 Red Pine, Bush.
David and Rachel organizing.
Inside the telescope, the astronauts had to get the latch to lock.
If you caught the desk just working, putting the doors back together, things you managed to close the gap. And we're going to press on. If you've got a way to do it, do it.
Strap and a ratchet, floating Story Musgrave improvised a solution. It was a success. The astronauts were elated.
Great.
Okay, yeah, that's how we get some video.
Well
Thank
done.
you.
Thank you very much.